Welcome back, everyone. The iPhone 12 Pro just came out, and we're going to go and compare it to another phone in its kind of same caliber, at least it's like predecessor in a way, the iPhone 10. Now, the iPhone 10 came out in 2017, so it's definitely not a brand new phone by any means. And honestly, if you have all the money in the world, then picking up the iPhone 12 Pro is probably the better way to go. The iPhone 12 Pro costs $1,000 brand new, even more than that if you want a top tier model. The iPhone 10 used to cost $1,000, but now it does not cost that anymore. You can pick up a lot of these things for like less than $400, and I've even seen some around like that $300 price tag too. So I'll find the cheapest ones of both of these and link them down in the description below. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now, side by side, you can kind of see that relatively they're around the same size, but one really cool thing is that the iPhone 12 Pro has a bigger display than the iPhone 10. The iPhone 10 had a 5.8-inch panel, the iPhone 12 Pro has a 6.1-inch panel, and definitely when it comes down to it size-wise, they're kind of similar in terms of the width of them, but the length, the iPhone 12 Pro is a little bit bigger, but you're not going to really notice it, especially with those newer sides, like the flat sides here. It definitely looks so cool, and I think it definitely looks much better than the curved design, but I think they both are almost exactly the same. I don't think really people are going to care about it too much. Now, the iPhone 10, like I stated, has that 5.8-inch OLED display, and for the most part, it was a really good panel. This was like the first time we had any type of OLED display on an iPhone, and it really still holds up completely. When I look at the iPhone 10 and I look at the iPhone 12 Pro, being completely honest, they look almost exactly the same. I don't think there's a huge difference, and if you just show me the panels, I probably wouldn't be able to tell if I'm being completely honest. Now, you have that notch, obviously, but you have the notch on the iPhone 12 Pro as well, so it's not entirely that crazy or old-fashioned design since the 12 Pro is exactly the same way. A little bit of bezel around the whole entire display, but for the most part, the iPhone 10 completely holds up 100%. Now, the iPhone 12 Pro, on the other hand, has that 6.1-inch OLED display as well. It's a Super Retina XDR OLED display, and it's pretty much the same concept as the iPhone 10. The notch, the very little bezel around it, besides that notch. And I think from day-to-day use, that's a really good panel. You have True Tone on both. You did have Force Touch on the iPhone 10, but you still have kind of the same feedback and the features on the iPhone 12 Pro. And day-to-day, I think both panels are almost exactly the same. Apparently, the iPhone 12 Pro's panel can get a little bit brighter, but I think for a majority of people out there, they're really not going to care all that much. They're just gonna, use it daily and move on. Like from the iPhone 10 to the 11 Pro and even to the 12 Pro, it's almost the same panel. I don't really notice too big of a differences, but if I am going to choose one, it would probably be the 12 Pro. In terms of the thickness, it is said that the iPhone 12 Pro was thinner than the previous predecessor or whatever, but I think between these two, they kind of feel the same. If anything, the iPhone 12 Pro feels a little bit thicker because the iPhone 10 with that curved design, it feels better in the fingers and just in the hands, and it feels thinner kind of, but the iPhone 12 Pro may actually be thinner, but it doesn't feel like that because you aren't necessarily feeling the thickest part of the iPhone 10 at all times because of that curved side. The iPhone 12 Pro, you're always going to feel the thickest part, so it may visually look better, but maybe the iPhone 10 feels a little bit thinner, even though the iPhone 12 Pro may be thinner. And on the back, you can see dual camera setup on the iPhone 10, a triple camera setup on the 12 Pro with that LiDAR sensor, frosted glass back on the iPhone 12 Pro, and that standard glass back on the iPhone 10. Now, three other things I want to hit on. The base storage models of both phones have actually increased. So from the iPhone 10, the 64 gig model, going to the 12 Pro or to the 12 Pro Max, you're actually going to be getting twice that amount of storage, which is really awesome. On top of that, you do have that MagSafe capability on the back of the iPhone 12 Pro. So if you have that MagSafe charger like I do, you can go and connect it to it. It's kind of like a waste of money if I'm being honest, but I made a whole separate video talking about that. But also the IP certification is better on the iPhone 12 Pro. So if you're going to be around bodies of water or whatever, this phone is more dust and water resistant than the iPhone 10, so keep that in mind. And in terms of the outside, that really pretty much covers it up. I think the iPhone 12 Pro is probably the better phone when it comes down to it, but the iPhone 10 is a very close second place. Now, software-wise, this is one of the biggest differences, I would say, in terms of both phones. The iPhone 10 came out in 2017, has that A11 chip inside of it, and it's probably going to get a couple more years of software support, but the iPhone 12 Pro is going to definitely outlast the iPhone 10 in terms of software. How much it's going to outlast it by, I'm not really too sure yet, but if I had to put down a number, maybe I'll say like a couple of years, maybe 2-3 years. I don't know yet, but I'll definitely say the iPhone 12 Pro is going to outlast the iPhone 10. but again, I don't know by how much. But both these phones are going to be supported for a couple more years now, so you can get these phones today or next year and still be supported for quite a bit of time. So in terms of software, that pretty much covers it. Now I'll go ahead and do a speed test between both these devices. The iPhone 10 had that Apple 11 Bionic chip with 3 gigabytes of RAM. The iPhone 12 Pro, on the other hand, has that Apple A14 Bionic chip with 6 gigabytes of RAM, so twice the amount of RAM from the iPhone 10 to the 12 Pro. So let's go and see which one has the faster phone between both of these. Okay, now that we're back, let's go and kind of swipe out of all these apps, and I have a lot of them open up on here. So let me go and swipe out of these. Should only take 2 seconds. So let's start loading up the App Store. 3, 2, 1. And definitely you can see there was quite a bit of difference between both these devices in terms of the scrolling speed. I don't know if you can tell over the camera, but definitely when it's face to face like me, I kind of see almost the same thing. They're almost the same kind of swiping out. They both look about the same swiping out of things. Now, as usual, I have a bunch of these third-party apps that we can go and get into. Let's do BOFA. 3, 2, 1. And the iPhone 12 Pro far faster than the iPhone 10. That was quite a bit of difference between them for sure. We can do Dropbox. 3, 2, 1. And again, the iPhone 12 Pro faster. The iPhone 10 quite a bit behind. We can do Fruit Ninja. 3, 2, 1. And the iPhone 12 Pro again is the faster one, and the iPhone 10 loaded up later, and it also looked a little bit glitchier than the iPhone 12 Pro. Now this is a pretty basic game. To see even that type of difference is pretty interesting in my opinion. Let's do Netflix. 3, 2, 1. And again, the iPhone 12 Pro a little bit faster than the iPhone 10. Again, not a deal breaker or anything, but that one was pretty close. But that one was way ahead of the iPhone 10. Paper Out 2. 3, 2, 1. And here you can see again the iPhone 12 Pro is faster, the iPhone 10 a little bit behind. Getting into some gameplay, let's see if there's a difference. And I don't think there's going to be a massive difference, but actually, yeah, they look about the same in terms of gameplay. But definitely when it came down to the loadings, oh, it did glitch a little bit on the iPhone 10 right there. But definitely when it comes down to the loading speeds, the iPhone 12 Pro is far faster there. We can do Quizlet. 3, 2, 1. iPhone 12 Pro faster again, iPhone 10 a little bit behind. Let's do Real Racing 3, 3, 2, 1. Now, this is kind of a bigger game, so there could be a chance where it may glitch up on one of these devices. The iPhone 10 may, I don't know if it'll load up faster. The iPhone 12 Pro was faster here. The iPhone 10 is still loading. I don't know if it's going to actually load up. Okay, so it might actually load up. And we do have to download it, but regardless, I think it still would have been faster on the iPhone 12 Pro. That's a pretty impressive thing for the 12 Pro still. We can do Snake versus Blocks. 3, 2, 1. And the iPhone 12 Pro was the faster one again, but the iPhone 10 was slightly behind it. Getting into some gameplay, I think they're going to be about the same. I don't think there's going to be that big of a difference, but definitely when it came down to it, the iPhone 12 Pro was faster here too. We can do Stack. 3, 2, 1. And again, the iPhone 10 was faster. iPhone 12 Pro, and again, the iPhone 12 Pro was faster. The iPhone 10 a little bit behind. Getting into some gameplay, let's see if there's going to be any glitches. And I don't really think there's going to be, but I guess we'll find out. And yeah, they're about the same when it comes down to it. We can do Temple Run 2. 3, 2, 1. And you can see the iPhone 12 Pro is definitely ahead of the iPhone 10. There's quite a bit of difference here. And the iPhone 12 Pro is fully loaded. The iPhone 10 a little bit behind it. That one was pretty big difference in my opinion. We were able to see quite a bit of difference here. Is it a big deal? That totally depends on you, but that was a pretty big deal to me in my opinion. And we can go and end it off with like thank you. 3, 2, 1. And I can never get these phones to fully just sit there right. And the iPhone 12 Pro again was the faster one. So I think definitely when it comes down to it, the iPhone 12 Pro is a far faster device, and even then, even swiping out of that app, it was still smoother on the iPhone 12 Pro. So overall, you're going to be getting a faster device and a smoother device from a phone like the iPhone 12 Pro, which is kind of a given. It's a newer device. It's several years newer than this phone, so I'm expecting it. As you can see, the iPhone 10 RAM management wise, you're going to have a worse experience on this phone, but both of them are still pretty good for the most part. So far, the 12 Pro is still doing better in RAM management. So definitely if you're going from the iPhone 10 to the iPhone 12 Pro, you're going to be getting a better speed performance for sure. And you're also going to be getting better RAM management than the iPhone 10, which is a really cool thing too. So in terms of that, that pretty much covers it up. Let's go ahead on the cameras. Now we have a dual camera setup on the iPhone 10, triple camera setup with a LiDAR sensor on the 12 Pro. 12 megapixel wide, 12 megapixel telephoto lens, where the 12 Pro has 12 megapixel wide, 12 megapixel telephoto, then 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor, as well as that LiDAR sensor. Now, in terms of the camera of both these phones, you can definitely see that overall you're going to be getting a better experience from a phone like the 12 Pro than on the iPhone 10, but I think both of them are actually very similar when it comes down to the features. Both can shoot 4K at 60 on the back camera, but unfortunately the front camera is probably where the bigger differences are. The iPhone 10 can only shoot 1080p videos, or we can actually do 4K at 60 on the front of the iPhone 12 Pro. So in terms of the camera, I mean, it kind of is already apparent which one I might like. Now with the iPhone 10, I've used this phone for a year and I personally liked it. There wasn't a lot to hate on this phone. It brought a lot to the table at that time kind of. And with that dual camera setup, at least you have an additional telephoto lens, which is something I like. You can do portrait mode, you can do 4K at 60 like I said. Is it a big deal? I mean, it's totally up to you, but I think like I said, the front camera is where this phone probably flops the hardest, and it's not the craziest difference, but it would have been really nice had this phone came out in 2017, so I'll give it some slack. But if a phone today in this day and age, like the OnePlus 8T, for example, that phone has a 1080p front-facing camera as well. And it's just a shame, it doesn't make any sense. Now, the iPhone 12 Pro, on the other hand, also has an extremely nice front camera and a back camera as well. I feel like the quality is clear on this camera, but on top of that, you're getting really, really good camera setup for the most part. You have the LiDAR sensor, which is awesome, and that additional ultra-wide sensor, which is something I actually like, and I prefer an ultra-wide over a telephoto lens. I think the telephoto lens on this phone is still good, but for sure the iPhone 12 Pro's camera, both the front and the back, gets a thumbs up for me in my books, and it's better than the iPhone 10 for sure. Now, ending it off with the battery life, I will be doing a battery comparison very, very soon. I'm going to assume that the 12 Pro may have actually better battery life. It has a little bit of a bigger battery. I think the iPhone 10's battery life is okay for the most part, but I will do a battery comparison very, very soon. So to kind of sum up the video and to answer the question, should you pick up the iPhone 12 Pro or should you keep your iPhone 10 or pick up an iPhone 10? What I can tell you is that going from an iPhone 10 to an iPhone 12 Pro, I think is a pretty decent upgrade for the most part. You're getting kind of better battery life, I would assume. You're getting a kind of a better build quality, even though they both feel kind of the same in the hand. The iPhone 12 Pro feels and kind of looks more like a flagship device, I guess, more than the iPhone 10. But there are a lot of similarities between them too. The iPhone 10 looks almost identical to the iPhone 12 Pro on the front. There's really no difference in terms of the display. Really, you're getting that flat design. That's really the biggest improvement, I would say, in terms of the visual differences. So if that's a big deal to you, then by all means go for it. But I think the way they film the hand and everything is almost identical. You're getting a better performing device for sure on the iPhone 12 Pro. Speeds are better and also RAM management. But I think the iPhone 10 is still a pretty good performing device for the most part. And if you don't expect a ton from your device and you're not, trying to put everything into RAM and everything, you're probably going to be totally okay with an iPhone 10. I think if the iPhone 12 Pro was a 10 out of 10, the iPhone 10 is probably like an 8.5 out of 10. I feel like the biggest areas that the iPhone 10 flops in are probably the front camera, maybe even the back camera, but that's not even a flop that hard because the back camera on the iPhone 10 is still pretty good for today's standards. And maybe, just maybe, like in terms of performance, if it did have a better RAM management setup inside of it, that would have been really cool as well. And also software support. This phone is going to be lasting for a little bit of time still, but the 12 Pro is going to outlast the iPhone 10 in terms of software support. So when the iPhone 10 is done being supported, the iPhone 12 Pro is probably going to be halfway through its software lifecycle. So that's a pretty big deal in my opinion. I think the choice is clear. If you have all the money in the world, going from an iPhone 10 to an iPhone 12 Pro is a really good idea, and you can do a lot with the iPhone 12 Pro. But I think if you still own the iPhone 10, maybe even just wait for the iPhone 13. The iPhone 10 is not being unsupported anytime soon, and it's still a very, very good phone. I think for the price tag of the iPhone 10, it's a pretty strong pickup. If the iPhone 10 was a $1,000 phone, by all means don't pick it up. But the fact that it's like a couple $100s in the used market makes this phone a really good pickup in my opinion. And even if you don't have either one of these, at least getting an iPhone 10, if you currently own a 6S or a 5S or an SE first gen or even second gen, getting an iPhone 10 I think is a pretty decent pickup for the most part. The iPhone 12 Pro is a $1,000 phone, so if you have all the money in the world, get it. But I think if you currently own an iPhone 10, it's still a super strong pickup in my opinion. So that really pretty much covers it up. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that means so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.